This episode is brought to you by Cube Gallery. Cube Gallery is a progressive art space in Cebu, Philippines, providing network and exhibit opportunities for contemporary artists with whom they work closely with and promote beyond the local reach. For more than 5 years, the gallery has progressively mounted shows of engaging artworks and have also significantly represented the Visayas region in various international fairs. Aside from its physical space in Crossroads, Manila, Cebu City, you can check out Cube Gallery's online collection on artsy.net/cube-gallery. This month at Cube Gallery, Ink Notion by O.J. Hoffer. Renowned Cebuano fashion designer and visual artist O.J. Hoffer will be featuring his Japanese calligraphy in a show entitled Ink Notion, which will run from October 22 to December 6 at Cube Gallery. Hoffer's study of Japanese calligraphy and ink painting began almost a decade ago. He has mounted several one-man shows in this genre of art. Ink Notion highlights O.J. Hoffer's ink artwork such as kanji and hiragana calligraphy in the 5 traditional styles, humorous Zen drawings, converging Enso circles, and transfixing ink on abaca bas relief. Catch the artist's reception of Ink Notion on Friday, November 22 at Cube Gallery. Welcome to 032 Conversations, the podcast where we talk to creatives, see how they live, and how they do their work. I'm your host, Carlo Villarica. Today is hashtag Thank You Patrons Day. So, hashtag Thank You Patrons Day is this thing that patreon.com has. I guess it's every November 19. It's an excuse, it's an opportunity to say thank you to the patrons. That's what we're going to do today. We're going to say thank you to the patrons of 032 Conversations. They allow us the freedom to share these stories, to share the stories of the creative community. And then, so right now, if you head over to patreon.com/032, you can see that we have 5 patrons currently. We started doing this last year. I'll be honest, I did not have high hopes for it. I just did it to see what would happen. And we got 5 people who were interested enough, generous enough to be patrons, and that's enough inspiration to keep going. We've yet to reach our first goal. Our first goal is $100 a month in pledges, in monthly pledges. But when we do, it will allow us to license a piece of music for the podcast. It's probably a local band, most likely. And instead of using the free music that you heard in the beginning of the podcast, it's just something that I got out of YouTube, something that I'm allowed to use for free. But if we reach $100 of monthly pledges, I'm going to contact one of these local bands. I haven't figured out who yet. And then I'll offer to license the music for the podcast and probably change the music every year or so. So that's one of the goals of our Patreon page. So again, thank you, patrons. It's great. It's great to have this support, to have this generosity. It really helps. It helps. Every little bit helps, and this allows us to continue making the podcast. Most likely, most of you who are listening to this are not patrons. As you know, there's only 5 currently. Hopefully, we get that number a little bit more by the end of the year. So again, hashtag Thank You Patrons. Thank you so much for supporting the podcast. Thank you so much for seeing some sort of value in what we do. It allows us to feature a new creative person every month. So far, I think this is like the 90th plus episode or something. So that's almost 90 people featured in the podcast, almost 90 people whose story we've been able to share, almost 90 people who've been able to voice out what they are doing in the creative community. And countless more who have been able to learn from the insight, from the stories of the people we've interviewed. So thank you so much. And in this episode, I interviewed Dexter Sy. amongst my circle of friends, when back in the day when I was doing when I was in a band called Rescue Hero around mid to late 2000s, and Dexter Sy was kind of infamous. He used to write these album reviews on Byte magazine. I don't know. Some of the folks might remember Byte magazine. It was this free magazine that they used to leave out in bars. Every month there was a new magazine out, and it was like a nice little way of looking at what was happening in the scene, in the music scene, or in Cebu. So once they started releasing music reviews, you bet that a lot of musicians read it. A lot of musicians read it because these were honest music reviews about a lot of local musicians and the occasional international band, but mostly local musicians. It was, some might say, brutally honest reviews. And but as a result, people took these reviews seriously. And that's my first encounter with Dexter Sy. Like, I only knew him as that guy who did those music reviews. And in fact, my favorite part of this interview with Dexter Sy was when we talked about those Byte magazine reviews and if he got any feedback from it. So if you listen, we'll talk about it. So I'll be honest, when I first met him, I didn't know what to expect. And I because after you read those reviews, I had this image in my head of what he was like, and then I didn't expect him to be just this super cool regular guy who was really nice, really interesting to talk to. I know him as that guy who did the reviews, but a lot of the current people in music know him as one of the guys in one of the co-founders of Melt Records. They've signed all of these cool bands. They're the one they've organized a couple of shows. So he's known as that. Some people even know him as a producer, as an engineer. A lot of people have a different view of who he is. And then also but then also I wanted to make sure we in the interview we talk about it. He has the techmanagement.life. It's like a management and corporate life blog that he's been doing. So they're totally different from music, but really also really interesting. Yeah, so we talked about all that, and really good. Before we get to that interview, if this is your first time to listen to 032 Conversations, please subscribe. We have a new episode every Tuesday. New interesting person every Tuesday. We interview them, talk to them, share their stories, get some insight, learn a thing or two. Okay, let's get to that interview, that conversation with Dexter Sy.
Yeah, I think we're pretty lucky, like, based on accounts now from people that we talk to who have kids as well. Because she started sleeping through the night around 2 months siguro, 3 months. Yeah, she would sleep like from 9 to 6 a.m. So we had that going for us at least.
Is that she a straight sleeper?
Yeah, she is. And,
yeah?
even now, like, although she wakes up early, not like intermittently, but so at least we still get a full night's sleep. And I think it does well for us.
That was my problem before. Because my kids, they wake up.
Mm-hmm.
I have 2 kids. One turning 2, the older one's turning 4.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the one turning 2 is turning 2 in a few days. And then both of them for a while would wake up in the middle of the night. I think until now, like sometimes, naghihapon.
Yeah, actually, I've heard that kind of regression might happen, but at some point. But hopefully not for.
Yeah, so I remember struggle kaya na ako before, just to get a good night's sleep. Now it's better because they're kind of better. And then of course, si Steph, my wife, really, a lot of times they're just looking for the mom. And then she just lies down beside them and okay na sila. Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, no, but like, I remember like really early on just carrying them and then just hoping that they're gonna sleep. And then you just walking around the house at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Actually, when Harper was like really young, I think she also did that, like 2 to 3 hours sleep lang. But we were kind of prepared for that. Like we expected that, and then we just got lucky na after like 2 months she learned to sleep through the night.
Yeah, you guys didn't do anything special, kanang...
Like I don't know if because we kind of made a decision but to have her sleep sa crib. We don't co-sleep with her. So I think that might have helped na she becomes more like an independent sleeper. Other than that, I don't think we really did much on that part.
Yeah, if you can keep that up, by like just let her sleep good in her crib. Okay, what happens is like that's my problem now. Like the kids are so used to having someone around, but no. So like, they're like. So my oldest is 4 years old. Him or ni chill out na siya, gamay. Like he figures it out. No, no.
It's about time, I think.
Yeah, I know. Like he's chilled out na. But for a while we were like just sleeping with them. So sometimes like our bed doesn't get used anymore, and then we're just in the kids' bed, and we're just there sleeping, and then it really was a struggle for a while. And then when you try to wean them out, pagid of that.
They're gonna resist probably.
Super resist. Like we tried doing that. Wow, we tried doing that with my firstborn for a while, and then like I remember. So we would do it like one night. Okay, put him in the crib, and then just let him sleep at some point. No, and then I think after 15 minutes of crying, di na makaya, so we got him. Started carrying him again. And after that, like our resistance became a little bit bigger. So let's say 30 minutes to an hour, but constant shouting and crying and good.
I've heard like psychologically that I think that like the frequencies of a baby's cry it's not actually something that's humanly possible to ignore. You can get used to it probably.
We got. I'm a couple of years down the line. I'm kind of used to it. I'm like, but so they also know it's not anymore a tool that they can use all the time. But because initially it's a tool. It's a tool for them.
Yeah, that's true. It's just, I guess, just communication and. Apparently, I think they also learn like to use that to their desires.
No, they do good. No, they do. Wow, I think I read somewhere. You have no idea how many, how much at some point once they start growing older, how much negotiation you have to do. No, with the kids. Yeah, I thought it'd be interesting because I read that piece that you wrote. Katong empathy is hard, and then. Nalingaw ako. Can you, for somebody, I'll link to it in the show notes, but like for somebody who didn't read it, can you there's like a gist?
Yeah, I think that was, basically I was equating that to what I do in management. I think a lot of it has to do with empathy. And that's actually something for a long time, even sa corporate na setting, but I think I didn't get much of a chance but to really learn that. I guess it helped when I moved jobs, and then I had started working with a smaller team, and then like it's kind of a fresh start. You work with people you don't know yet, and then you get to make this effort, but to learn more about them. And that kind of related that to what I go through with Harper. I think definitely it's different because Harper is like she can't talk really, like she can't really verbalize what she wants, and somehow I found that easier to empathize with compared to when you actually use words. I think that's the whole thing that I realized na I guess words sometimes would distort what you really want because you want to be polite or you want to be you actually goes through like this whole reasoning process, and maybe through that like you kind of lose the emotional aspect of it. And I guess
the babies, they don't use words, but they're very direct. Like they let you know if they're happy or if they're sad. Period.
Yeah, so
you
you're
just don't know
sure.
You just don't know why.
Yeah. You have to figure it out, but you basically know that they're not like trying to be nice to you, or they're not trying to be manipulative.
Oh,
maybe
there's
maybe
no
in a way.
politics involved. Oh,
Yeah.
they learn that when they're older.
Yeah, actually, yeah. That's why I heard too. So I'm kind of preparing for that as well.
Yeah, no, it's cool. It's fun because I'm a dad too, and I remember those early year, the first year, ba. That first year is well, raising a kid is not easy.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, it's one of these. One of the things that I say is that the tricky thing with raising a kid is, you don't really know if you did a good job until 20 years later.
Yeah. That's true.
As far as you're concerned, as long as they're alive,
that's the primary thing.
That's the primary thing. But you don't know. You don't
That's
know,
true.
but it doesn't matter what their grades are in school. And it's after 20, 25 years, 30 years, that's when you know,
that's
okay.
Yeah.
Diba?
And it's actually true for any people-related work, actually. I mean, not just with kids. Like,
What do you mean?
yeah, you realize that, I talk, actually, there's one article in my blog where I talk about feedback loops, and then, I think the feedback loop when it comes to people is like pretty long, and that's something I always talk to with my boss about, and you don't really realize what kind of impact the work that you do has, like, until maybe years down the line, right? Like, you try to do something for people, and then they might be appreciative at first, but later on it turns out that it negatively affected them.
What do you mean? I think is that the one we're closing open?
Yeah,
closing
that one actually was more about products. I was actually still writing something about people.
I didn't read that one.
Yeah,
I didn't read
yeah,
that one.
yeah.
Oh, so that one was kanang about. Oh, kana. So
Uh,
can you explain that a bit? So closing.
feedback loop, like how you find out whether you did a good job or not. With product, with software in general, like it tells you automatically that you did something wrong.
You know right away.
Yeah, know right away. But with people, like, it usually takes a bit longer, because when you like do something for them, usually they would be appreciative at first, but you don't know how that would affect their careers, like, down the line, or how it affects their growth or personal growth, months or even years, like, down the line. So that's kind of scary. And what you talked about kids, I think it applies even with older people, I think.
That's true. I never thought of it that way. Okay. As you were talking about, I was like, "Why this guy is I haven't had many conversations with you." Then I realized, okay, you're a programmer, so you really think in that way.
Yeah, I was kind of started out that way. I'm still like transitioning, though much closer towards that people aspect of things right now. Still transitioning though.
Oh no, I get it. No, because even the whole going back to that article that you wrote, empathy is hard. See Steph, my wife, she jokes a lot. Jokes, for half meant bang amurag. I don't really have that much empathy. I actually think I do, but when dealing with her, sometimes she feels like I'm not empathetic. But then, for a while in the beginning, she was really good actually. No, and then it's a skill that I had to really learn. But like something doesn't bother me at all, might bother someone else. Mariana ba? And
That's
then,
true.
and then, I'm not sure if I learned it from my kids, but the kids definitely help. No?
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, bay. Do you still do mga home recording?
Not since like a couple of years ago, I think. Yeah. I still have my stuff, but it's like be idle, and some of them I lent to some friends as well. I haven't done it myself like in a long time.
Yeah. Because I remember that. Like a couple of years ago, we had that talk in A Space, and you were talking about home recording.
Yeah. That's been like a part of, I guess my identity for a long time. But I get kind of lost interest a bit on it. Though, sometimes there's that itch still to create something in the home studio, and it's more of a necessity actually.
At the time, No, because I remember when we were in A Space. Long time ago doing that talk, you did the talk, and you're talking about the home recording, the whole beauty aspect of it, the DIY aspect of it, and then like nalingaw ko because that's what I was doing.
Yeah, you did that to Rescue Hero, right?
Yeah, that's what I was doing with Rescue Hero, and then also very much like you, it really was a necessity in a way. We didn't have any money to spend on a recording studio. And then it turns out it's very difficult to do it.
It is actually, but it's fun.
It's fun, oi. It's fun, good. So, but you don't do that anymore.
No, I haven't been doing that for a while.
What was the last band that you recorded?
Actually, after the home setup, in the home setup, I'm not completely sure which was the last band. I think I did one track with Honey Drop at home for their last album, which was released in 2017. I think that was the track set apart. And that's the last major thing that I remember doing at home. I guess there's also my own album, which I released like sometime last year. I recorded that in a different setup actually than what I recorded in before, because we've actually moved after I got married. So I recorded a lot of those songs like in a new place. So the acoustics were a bit different, but yeah, I guess that was the last thing that I did.
What were you doing? Wait, first of all, I didn't know that you released something last year under your name.
No, it's Psycho Monkey. That's the band that I had.
Okay. I had your CD.
Which one?
I don't know.
That was probably 1 year ago, right?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I remember buying your CD, and then I kept it in my car. I play it every now and then.
Maybe not the last one though. I think the last one was in 2017 as well.
Not the last one. No.
The 2018
CD that I got was
way
like 2012 probably or something.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was you.
Really?
No idea.
Up to now?
No, I have no idea. One of the things that I do when I do an interview, but I'll research. The tricky thing is when you type your name, there's another artist in Manila.
Yeah, that's right.
It's exactly the same.
Actually, from Bacolod. Actually,
from Bacolod.
Jen actually jokes a lot about that. I think she knows the guy. Maybe not too close with the guy, but she knows about the guy because she's been involved in Bacolod art scene as well for a while.
Well, so you have a lot of kanang, it's his stuff, then your stuff, then his stuff, then your stuff. It gets a bit. There's a lot. There's a lot to go through. Noon ba?
Yeah.
I didn't realize. So when you noticed it right away when you moved, you tried recording and you're like, good.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I think the space really matters when it comes to home recording stuff, and then you can invest in a lot of equipment, but in the end you have to work with the space that you have. So that's one thing I really noticed was different, especially when you start recording the vocals.
Yeah,
because it bounces around a lot.
The vocals was really challenging for me. I remember what we did before with Rescue Hero. I'd have McCoy stand in front of my dresser, my cabinet basically, then I'd open it. Yeah, I'd have all my clothes there. And then he would just sing towards the clothes. And then sometimes, in the beginning, I used to have something in the back. And then I'd put a blanket over him. But the problem was, he'd start sweating really hot after 5 minutes. Dili siya conducive at all. What did you guys do in your home studio?
Actually, we worked with the reverb as much as we could. But I think that's one thing actually with the home studio is, I noticed, especially when it's when you work in a bedroom. I think that's why a lot of people do it in the bedroom. I think there's a lot of things there that actually helps with acoustics. Like you have the bed, and the bed itself I think helps a lot. You have curtains, so I didn't really have to do much with that in that aspect. But you have to kind of work with that in the post production. There might be some reverb around, and as long as it works, I think it goes in the song. So you don't. I think one thing about home recording is you kind of have to give up a bit of control over how it sounds like.
Yeah, for sure.
And you try to make something good out of what you have. And I think that's so we didn't do much about the vocals part.
So you kind of had a dead room na lang yun.
Yeah, it's pretty. What was there really helped out the sound. If you have a more empty room, then probably you'd have to do a bit more.
Bounce. Yeah. Sometimes I'll do this interview. And then occasionally I'll have a guest that we need to go somewhere ba. And then sometimes I'll book a conference room. And then it's really like my last interview actually was like a conference room, really echoey good, and I didn't really know what to do. Yeah. Bahala na. Just do it na lang.
How did it turn out?
I don't know. I haven't heard it. I'm just gonna assume that good na. But then what can you do?
Yes.
You know,
as long as it's audible.
Yeah. That's the thing. Yeah, you never had problems. Like I remember before, like vocals was really a problem. Record the vocals, and then there's a road good in front of my room. Most of the time, people passing, but then occasionally you hear a motorcycle. And then you didn't have those problems.
Yeah, fortunately, our house doesn't have a lot of traffic around, so we didn't have problems with the cars, but we did have problems with our dogs. So we just moved them to the back, so they don't get hurt a lot. There are some recordings actually where you could actually, if you're really isolated, but you could actually hear the dogs. And in one particular recording with Hey, It's Your Birthday, we decided to go with that because they're recording a song called Ghost Dog. So,
that's cool.
So it kind of worked out. But that's one thing that I also enjoyed about the whole home recording process is like the ambience. There's happy accidents that come out with the ambience of the room. And I actually like to record, even if it's like a small room, I like to record like instruments together because they bleed through different mics, and that actually works out for me. But I end up with a mix that sounds very organic, almost like a live recording. That's something that I really like.
So you did a lot of the mixing yourself.
Yeah, I did actually.
So you bought like your own, like the speakers were super important.
Yeah.
You remember your gear?
Yeah, actually the challenging thing about that is I actually bought like a cheaper low-end speakers, and that worked for monitoring purposes. And then I had to like try it out with a lot of different setups, like with headphones, without headphones.
I like the final mix. Yeah. Like after you mixed it, and you moved it to different speakers.
So sometimes I listen to it on my phone, then I take notes, and then when I get home, I try to adjust it a bit. The next day, I listen to it again. So it's actually a long process. So that's a challenging part of it. Eventually, I get to use the space at Gospel House. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Is that the one in Escario?
Yeah. And then I kind of had a deal with Jeriel, who rented out, who owned the place, to set up my gear there. So then I got to buy like a bigger set of monitors, and then that helped me a lot with the mixing. So I would go there to mix. But prior to that, it was really a big headache actually. Getting the sound just right.
Yeah, wait. I remember I used to do that, son. And then I could never get the mix to do it. In the end, we had Brian Sacro mix it. And he did I actually don't know if I did a good job with the takes. Like, I just did what I thought was okay, but once we gave it to him, I thought it was okay. I think the mix came out really nice, but I found it very difficult.
That's true. I think it takes a while to master it, but then when there's a few things actually that you regret after publishing it, because when you listen to it, there's this. I guess the thing that I really struggled with was like when the audio like dips a bit. Like there are certain parts, I think it's the compression and everything, and the levels actually. And sometimes the audio dips, and once it's published or it's released, you can't really do much about it. But,
no point changing it anymore.
And then sometimes we revise it a bit for the digital release, for example. But I think there's only so much that you can do, so you have to accept that as again like giving up control over how the final product sounds.
Yeah, I remember. You have I'm sure you've spent more hours doing that thing, but I remember I spent a lot of hours doing it. And then there were times I would read about it, but I didn't really know what it meant until I did it myself. You get that ear fatigue.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
You get desensitized to how it sounds.
More good.
And then when you listen to something else, a commercial production, then when you listen back, you go back to what you did, it starts sounding like crap.
Oh yeah, grabe. So kana and then no, but like the no, like let's say you were working on a mix for 3 or 4 hours straight, and then you're like, oh, okay, then you put your monitors down, your headphones or whatever it is, and then you listen the next day, and then you're like, what was I thinking? Where it's totally different, ba?
Every time, I think at some point you have to say, no, it's good enough, but then not go back to it for until you release it. Like that's something that I've had to deal with, like psychologically, like because every time you listen to it, there's something you want to adjust a bit. And then at some point you have to say, no, that's good enough, and then of course you have to compare the last thing that you did with something else. I think that's the way you deal with ear fatigue. Then
you compare.
And once it's like it sounds pretty good na. Then especially when you've set the deadline for it, like, you have to really say that that's as good as it's gonna get. Later on you'll probably have a bit of regrets with that, but that's like life.
Did you ever record like drums?
Yeah, I did a ton of it. Yeah. Then I've worked with a lot of different setups from when I started with like a 2-mic na setup, just an overhead, and because I had a two channel interface when I started, so I could record like the kick drum and then an overhead.
That was your style. That was the style for the
very
drums
before. First na setup, and then I've worked with at most like a 6 or 7 mic setup. When eventually I got these multi-channel interfaces. So it's actually an interesting part of recording because there's like a lot of schools of thought with regards to how you mic drums. Some want to mic it like a single instrument. The others like you want to isolate each drum or each part of the drum like as much as possible.
Yeah, mo bitaw like si Makoy, when we were recording, he wanted to do that, the isolation. That's like, I just don't have the
equipment for that.
I don't have the equipment. I also don't know how to do it. So we really went to that was the one. That was the one thing that we went to a studio get to do to record drums.
Yeah, I think that's how it usually goes with home recording.
Amo ba?
Yeah, I think a lot of people like go to studios just to record the drums. If they have a bit of a budget they can use for that.
You see, you've recorded like so many different bands, diba?
Yeah, quite a few, I think. So,
did you have any like I don't know? I used to read these Guitar World magazines, and they'd have like these stories of bands in the recording studio. Is there something like I don't know worth sharing, like a fun story?
I don't think so. I think it's more. I think the most fun recording that I've done actually it has more of the fun. The fun is really more in the process rather than the experience itself. To me, at least, maybe I lack empathy a bit on the human aspect, but the process is usually a lot of fun for me. And then with bands like Bumbo Plutova and Hey It's Your Birthday, like we try to get the sound like as live as possible. So I think with Bumbo Plutova, 3 people, so it wasn't like a lot of people in the same room. But with Hey It's Your Birthday, there's 5 people in the band, and there's vocals, so that was a challenge. So we kind of used the bathroom for the vocals. The wiring part of it was like it was a mess, but I did the best that I could.
So you did it all live. You wanted to get that whole live feel.
Yeah. And then we did some overdubs like after the main recording was done, but most of it really was like the live take. But that was a lot of fun for me, and I couldn't like believe that I got that many people in the same recording at once. It was just an 8-channel na interface, so the constraints actually like bring out a lot of the fun aspect of it.
Yeah, that's something that I wanted to do for our band, but like. It's a band, so it's not like I make all the decisions, but so they wanted to do the whole track by track. Kanang I felt like our live was it felt fun playing live, my good. So I thought it'd be cool to get that into the recording, that feel, no?
Your bandmates disagreed.
Yeah, no, it's fine. No may kaso, but it was a pain.
Whatever works.
Huh?
Whatever works.
Oh, yeah. I'm just
I
saying,
think
it was a pain in the butt for me. But
Yeah.
like, kapuya niyo. Sige.
And I think it also, with the live recordings that I did so far, I think it's something it's either we decided with the band that's also the feel that they want, or we kind of figured out that it's really impossible to do it any other way. Like with Honey Drop, actually we did a live recording though it was in Gospel House, not at my home.
Okay.
Because it's basically, the reason is basically because there really was no other way to do it. They have to like look at each other when they record the song or when they play the song, because there's a lot of stops and goes, and there's a lot of timing details where that really.
Yeah, so like a metronome wouldn't do it. Like
metronome wouldn't. It might work, but it would be a lot more work for them. And it would probably come out less organic if they did try to do it that way.
That was my feeling with our band, because we were a lot, because we did a lot of like looking at each other before a change. So.
And I think that's how a lot of bands would like to record as much as possible. But like a lot of producers like force bands to like really record one at a time, use a metronome, and it makes sense for a lot of cases. Like if you're trying to do something that sounds a lot of pop sensibilities, I think that would make sense to use a metronome. But if you're recording a rock band or something more experimental, or like a math rock band, but like Honey Drop sometimes does. So yeah, it makes sense to do it live as much as possible.
I think there's no right or wrong, man.
Yeah.
It's just like
for sure.
Yeah, it's just a school of thought, ba? So the producer, of course, they want it track by track because they get to really control what's happening.
It's a lot easier in the mix, definitely.
Oh, for sure. So tell me about Melt Records, bay.
Sorry.
When did it start, gani? The Melt?
It started like a couple of years ago. Co-founded it with PJ Ong.
Okay. It's you and PJ Ong.
Yeah. So he's on board for the as the creative director, man. We co-founded it. Actually, the name came from him, and the logo as well, of course. And it kind of started out. He did a lot of the album art for Bomba Press before we moved to Melt, and so a lot of the concept for the record label was his idea. And also another co-founder was Cyril Peral, who's a friend of mine from the software world, but who's also really interested by music, and who went to a lot of the gigs that we did before. So he's kind of on board like as a general manager for the label, since I've kind of taken a step back from it. And he's also handling the sales right now. So I started like 2 years ago. I think I'm not sure what the first album we released with that label was, but I think it was Kirena, a band from Cagayan de Oro. So they're spelled Krna, but they pronounce it like Kirena.
Okay, Karina.
Yeah. I think that was the first album we released under the Melt na label. And it went on from there. I think I also have to shout out to Mick from Loop and Debbie from Honey Drop, who are also on the core team right now. They're doing... Debbie does a lot of the PR stuff for Melt, and Mick works with the artists mainly and coordinates the releases for the artists.
Oh yeah? So who does like the produce? Do you guys dip your hand in the producing of the albums?
Yeah, that would be Mick at this point. That's something I used to do a lot. And then when I took a step back, so Mick kind of took over, because he also does a lot of mixing and home recording.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard of Loop.
I know Loop.
I think the first album that they did was actually also home recorded by Mick.
Okay.
And it sounds really great actually, and I listened to it. It's sort of something that I can't really identify. It's home recording.
Yeah, they saw it. I haven't listened to them in a while, but I remember thinking at the time it was like it had a very modern sound.
Yeah.
No, but the one that I did listen to, I was looking at I was just browsing through the Melt Facebook page, I think, or something, and then there was a band called Odd.
Yeah.
And then actually I was listening to them this morning, and then they're like That's like the time I really enjoy that kind of music.
Yeah. They're from Dumaguete actually,
Oh,
and they
no.
recorded that. I'm not sure if they recorded it at home. We aren't really involved in the recording process of it. So I think they did it in one of the studios at Dumaguete.
It sounds really
It
nice.
sounds really good. Yeah, when I listen to it, it's really great.
I mean, I really like it. I used to listen to a lot of like Explosions in the Sky. There's another band, something Destroy, something I forgot.
Maybe Godspeed, Black Emperor. Yeah, I think.
Something. But that Murag, I really got. For a while, I really liked it, and then I started listening to them. I was like, wait. I'd like to see these guys live. These guys live must be really
once in a while
nice.
they come to Cebu actually.
I follow them on Instagram. I followed them on Instagram this morning. I was like, "Oy, if they announce that they're gonna come here,
you have to watch them. And they're different. And the recordings are great, but they're a different level when they're doing live.
MOBA.
Like they play live.
But if I had more time this morning, I would have watched a couple of. Because I had some YouTube videos.
Yeah.
So I would have watched a couple of YouTube videos just to get a sense of what it's like. But Mona, I just ended up listening to their Spotify. So they're from Dumaguete.
Yeah, they are.
So one of the things that I'm kind of curious with is how do you know how do you get these bands together? Like Loop is from Cagayan.
Yeah, Iligan.
Iligan? Iligan.
Yeah.
Iligan. Okay, so Odd is from Dumaguete.
Kirina is from Cagayan.
Yeah, what?
Kirina
is from Cagayan. There's Still Dreams. That's they're from Japan. And that Peregrine. How do you say this? Peregrine. They're from Zamboanga. How do you?
I think that's credit to Mick. He has a lot of connections in bands, especially in Mindanao, like Cagayan, Zamboanga. I think because there's kind of this circle in Mindanao. Like I don't really know much about it, but they like. What I've noticed was they do gigs like in Bukidnon, they do gigs in Cagayan, they do gigs in Ligan. So there's kind of this triangle of places. So I think a lot of Mindanao bands that converge towards that
those areas.
Triangle, yeah. And then I guess Mick meets a lot of these other bands from there.
Is he from there or?
He's from Iligan, yeah.
He's
from Loop, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, he plays with Loop.
Okay. So he did the recording. Yeah.
Yeah, he did the recording for Loop. But he's the guitarist as well for the band. So I think that's where he meets a lot of the Mindanao folks. But with the international acts like Still Dreams, actually I had a couple of other bands, but one from Italy and one from the UK who contacted us. And I think that's really the magic of the internet.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I think it's mostly social media. And kind of got featured in a blog a few months back. That's kind of, they kind of like cover bands and music in the Asia Pacific region so I guess they're kind of international, so it might have had something to do with it, getting these other.
So they just reached out to you.
Yeah, they reached out to us.
Like who reached out? Give me an example.
Still Dreams
Still Dreams,
reached
they
out
reached
to us.
out.
They sent us an email.
So I always have this question. So I've talked to a few people who've run like a label, like a record label, and then I always have this question comes out every time. So like, why? What is the role of the label in today's music, ba?
Personally, I think because of the internet, I think the lines between what the label does, what the publisher does, and what the artists themselves do kind of gets blurred. I think there's all the means to do it independently as an artist. But I think personally, my mission with Melt is kind of like educating bands as well on how to do things, how to go about doing things in this new age. Because I have this not a theory but an observation. I kind of feel like this day and age, no one really knows what to do with music. Like the major labels probably don't know because the landscape has changed so much. So we have these major labels also kind of experimenting on what they do for the bands and how they make money. So I guess at this point we're also experimenting in that aspect, but just that we kind of have the resources and the tools to make the process easier for the bands, and we kind of consider ourselves like a cooperative rather than a label, because everything that we make, all the money that we make, goes into making another album happen for another band. So eventually these bands, like the best case scenario for me would be that they eventually get to do like the whole independent music, independent artist na process but from beginning to end when they have the resources to do that. So my goal is kind of like to educate them towards that.
Yeah, because I was thinking about it became very clear to me when I talked to Luis Quibranza from Bethany, and then there's like an artist typically just wants to focus on the music and just making the music, and then everything else is kind of, it's actually very, what makes you very good at everything else is actually very different from what makes you good at making the music.
Yeah, that's true.
Diba?
Yeah, because it's a different set of experiences that you go through. Different set of tools, definitely. That you have to learn. So yeah, I'd say it's a whole different aspect of it.
So for example, Kanisi Still Dreams, they reached out to you guys. So why? Like why? They just needed help with distribution, the whole system?
Kind of, they wanted to find an audience like in this particular region in Southeast Asia. And I think they kind of, the way I understood it was they kind of fell in love with the Southeast Asian scene when they went to Hong Kong for a few shows. So I guess they realized that they prefer this scene than what they have in Japan.
Well,
so
what do they have in Japan?
I don't know. I'm not completely sure what it is about the Southeast Asia scene, but could be more vibrant siguro than their point of view. And so they wanted to find an audience here. And then I guess I don't know if they were really shopping around for record labels to work with, but somehow they found us and then they contacted us. So they kind of allow us to release their music. They kind of license it to us to release locally. I guess with the expectation that they would find an audience here and find a network as well here, where they could maybe build up their own networks.
But what do you mean by release locally? Because when you release it, it's released everywhere.
Yeah, it's international, but in terms of marketing, like you probably have a bigger audience where you're based.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so in terms of marketing...
Yeah, marketing. Okay. I think that would be probably the primary expectation that they have of us.
Okay, it wasn't like, sorry, my mind magud went to, they gave you the song, you have the rights to Philippines, and somebody else has the rights to...
It's not like that. In this particular case, I guess the localization of rights is kind of difficult, especially for digital releases.
Oh, yeah, I get that.
Yeah, so we kind of agreed with them that we would have the exclusive rights to release it on Spotify, on Bandcamp. Although Bandcamp is kind of a gray area, anyone can like resell on Bandcamp. They can sell it themselves on Bandcamp if they want.
Well, they can do it themselves too in Spotify, technically, di ba?
Yeah, but you can only have one copy of it on Spotify. So
So
if someone has to have like the exclusive rights to it to release on Spotify.
So how does that process work? Let's say I'm a band. Yeah, I'm I want to make music, and then I'm willing to gig. I'm willing to release music at a set period of time. And then I contact Melt Records. I contact you guys. And I say, hey, we need a label. I don't even know what to say. Hey guys, can you help me out? So how does that work? What's the step-by-step process, more or less?
In our case, like we get in touch with them, try to get them on a call, especially if they're like based in Cebu, then we try to meet them as much as we can. But usually it's internet age lagi, so we have like Skype calls with them to set expectations. Because we don't really have a fix. We have like a default agreement that we use, but everything's flexible. Like we set expectations with the band, like what we can provide to them, what we expect from them in return as well, and the financial stuff as well. That goes into there. So when we're kind of in agreement, so we kind of sign on the written agreement, and that's separate for the physical copies and for the digital distribution. Because like the terms are kind of a lot different, so we decided like to have two separate agreements with the bands.
Tama ba? For like physical and digital?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And the way that we split the revenues also differ a lot with both cases.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's kind of 50-50 on profits. That's the basic na rule. But there's a lot of details na I would say kind of differ in both
Because
aspects.
I guess, so for example, let's say physical release, there's a cost there per unit. So,
yes.
So I'm not sure who usually pays for the actual printing, that cost per unit.
We usually do that as a label.
So that usually goes under the label.
Yeah.
Oh, so of course you guys need to, what's the word? Recuperate the
difference though. I guess one thing that we do differently is with the albums, you don't really recuperate everything in one go. So on the digital end, like there's a one-time subscription for most of these services. So that's actually where we recuperate the one-time subscription. But with the albums, like we kind of print like small batches, so we don't really feel the need to we have to recuperate the entire expense for it. So, but yeah, in a way we split what's above and beyond what each unit costs.
So for example, digital. So you're using like a service like CD Baby or something.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
No, and then so is it a one-time fee per song?
It could be if you release it as a single, it's a per song thing, and then you could also release it as release an album, which is also a different subscription fee.
But I would assume the album is cheaper just because there's more.
Per song, it would be cheaper per song.
Really?
If you average it per song,
per song. Yeah.
But definitely the album would be more expensive.
So let's say I wanted to release. I have all these songs in my back pocket. I have like 10 songs, and I wanted to release them one by one. Does Spotify give you the option to just upload all of the 10 songs, but publish it separately? Yeah.
I don't think so, actually.
Oh, really?
If you publish an album, it has to be released at the same time. Like you could do a pre-order thing where you have an instant gratification track, like a track that becomes available as soon as you pre-order it. But the rest of the album becomes available once you release it. But other than that, I think you have to release the whole thing at the same time.
Oh, okay. So they don't do that. So because now there's this whole, at least amongst musicians, there's conversation of do you release a single or do you release an album?
Yeah, I think you have to choose actually.
Mabita. Because the single, there's a lot of benefit.
Yeah, that's true.
For doing just the single thing.
In our case, actually, it's more of an availability thing. Like you have the single ready, and then you want to start marketing it. You want to start building an audience with it. So usually, with most of the new bands that we sign up, we usually go for a couple of singles first before we release a full album from them. So it's kind of building an audience. I think that's the main benefit that I see of it. Of course, there's the conversation as well. Attention span of people people really don't have that attention span, but to listen to a whole album, which I think is valid, but I think it's not really a big concern for us. Because even if you have the album released, you could always choose to listen to just one song.
Yeah,
it doesn't really matter so much.
Yeah, I think Spotify particularly, it's a very different. I forgot who I had this conversation with or where I read this, but it's a very different experience as opposed to back in the day when you used to put a CD in.
Yeah, that's true.
And and just let it play. I remember sometimes I'm so tired of the first 2 songs and I press next. But Spotify is just
it caters to the short attention span, and at the same time it also caters to the on-demand aspect where that people have gotten used to.
That on-demand is the one that's insane.
Yeah. But you also have experiences it's kind of tied in to the software, the whole idea of software. I kind of feel people seek out experiences in circles, but you have a brand new way to experience music, for example, as Spotify. But then you go back to what you used to experience, and you kind of just look for that kind of experience as well. And I think that's why Spotify has this concept of the Spotify radio, Because you still want, even if you want that on-demand experience, you still kind of want that experience that the music comes to you somehow. Like, and that's where Spotify Radio comes in.
So like is it really like radio? Like there's radio jocks?
It's actually like an AI thing. They generate like a playlist for you automatically based on your listening preferences.
Yeah, but also that's like so one of the things my wife and I what my wife does primarily when the kids go to sleep, so she'll play. We have those little Alexa speakers, and then she'll go, Alexa, play cafe music or something.
That's what we do actually, because we have a Google Home as well.
Diba? And then it's actually really neat. And then Moto, and then it just, I have no idea what it's playing. But it's just playing like a genre of music ng murag unsa ba. And in a way it's great. It's great because back then it was kind of a pain to do something like that. But also at the same time it's kind of sad because you don't know who these people are.
Yeah, that's true.
Diba?
Yeah, that's I think that's a downside of it. If you're an artist who because there's actually a lot of stuff on Spotify that's really there just to make money. But like, it's just there to get the plays and then earn some revenue out of it. And I think that's part of it. Yung mga cafe music, you have even cover songs on Spotify. I think.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because it's much with the like internet age, like it's a lot easier to get the permissions to make covers, and then that's what people like upload on Spotify. So I can see it from that point of view. So, but there's also the point of view. You're an artist, a serious artist who wants to make albums, who wants to make music, and wants to play shows. And that, I guess, in a way, the Spotify experience kind of doesn't serve you very well in that respect.
That's true. I mean, it serves you well in a sense. Like today, like for me, my experience today was this morning browsing through, looking at artists in your label, and I was like, oh, what's this? And then checking out Odd, and then just being like, whoa, like I really enjoy. This is the type of this is what I like. I like this. I made a mental note. I was like, how do I hope this band works on my Alexa. I kept thinking, how will I say it?
Yeah, that's true. Me and Jen have the same problem actually. Like we try all these keywords but with Google Home just to get the one that we want.
Yeah, it's kind of a pain in the butt. Like it's
worse with TV. Like do you use Alexa like to like I guess with Chrome you can use it with Chromecast or Google Home. But it's not really convenient because you have to like figure out, because usually with TV, like you like to browse a bit, right, before you choose something. So it doesn't really work out as that well.
Well, how are you using it with the TV?
You just say like play, if you have a show that you like, maybe it works like, play Stranger Things or something, and then
like on Netflix,
automatically runs.
So it links it
automatically
links
plays on the TV.
Okay, and that works.
It works that way, but
there's some shows nga more.
You don't know the keywords for everything, right? You don't know what you want to watch. You want to browse a bit. So then the remote control still makes sense. And
then our pronunciation also is different sometimes.
Although I think we dealt with that a lot siguro with how
I'm sure it's getting better. Yeah. No, it's interesting. Like the whole voice thing is interesting to me also. That's why we ended up getting the Alexa. Just to really, I mean, number one, it's actually really cheap. Mm-hmm. No, surprisingly cheap.
Yeah, like Google Home is like 2,000.
Yeah, I mean, considering ba. And then but it's also, I don't know, I feel like it's like a peek into the future. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like some of these things might be overhyped a bit, but it's getting better. But I think that's the important thing.
Yeah, I can't figure out. I'm just kind of curious. So I can't figure out any other real uses for it though. Like practically speaking, like the only thing we really use it every day for is really just the music.
Yeah, that's true.
No?
In our case, that's also the primary thing we use it for. But there's other fun stuff I think that we sometimes use, like we have games.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, like quiz games.
And
then you can also ask it stuff like if you have something.
Yeah, or we say like, Alexa, tell me a joke.
Yeah,
And then
that's a fun thing that you do, but you probably don't do often. There's one thing that really helped us during Jen's pregnancy was like asking it, like what does, how do you prevent heartburns, for example, or how do you relieve heartburns? Of course, it's just as reliable as Google. You can't really trust it completely with medical stuff. But
no, but
other than
it's the ease of use, but the ease of use, yeah.
Other than searching it like on your phone, it kind of helps that way.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
You could use it like as a shopping list. Like you could tell it to add stuff to your shopping list. I don't know with Alexa because Google has this list na app mo good, so you can see it there if you add stuff to your shopping
well, there are
list.
differences, but apparently it's very, I don't know, very specific.
Yeah.
Like you can't connect this with that. Mariana ba?
Yeah.
I was even able to connect my Google Calendar to Alexa. If you say,
for sure.
if you say good morning, Alexa, and then it'll say good morning. It'll tell me the weather, and then I linked it to my Google Calendar, so it will basically say what's on my Google Calendar for that day.
Yeah.
But I never use it.
Yeah, because out of it is, I think it's fun sometimes because it plays podcasts as well. Like,
Oh, wait, that's true. You bet I've tried putting this 0321. Yeah, but it's the aggregator that. Yeah, it reminds me. The aggregator that they use, for whatever reason, this podcast is not in it. So, sumagsamo kay siya. Annoyed ko for a while. I was figuring out how to add it there.
You could play it on Spotify. Like, you could.
I haven't tried playing it through Alexa on Spotify.
I think I've tried that. I think it works.
Okay.
As long as you have the right keywords.
Well, okay, so I don't know. I have to figure it out. Now, I remember being slightly annoyed that when I did it. Plus, di ba guys, you used to write for Byte magazine?
Yeah, I used to.
Now, how did that come about?
There was a time, like I think that was 2008, I guess, and then I was really into writing stuff, like writing music stuff. Because I read a lot of like music articles as well, and I thought I might I tried contacting Pulp magazine, I tried contacting Byte magazine at that time.
So you reached out?
Yeah, I reached out to them. At first, they responded and they didn't really need anything, so that was fine. And then eventually, they contacted me again, and then they said they wanted music reviews, so I took on it, like as a hobby lang. And then I started writing music reviews, and then David also owned Byte magazine and also Blood Red, I think. And he started asking me to cover events as well. And he also asked me to write features. So I guess that's how it went. Sometimes he would give me like these albums to review, and sometimes I would pick albums that I wanted to review as well. And he was really open to it. But like I remember I was kind of, I don't know if it was like post-teenage angst or something, but I also kind of wanted to write these controversial opinions. But I think Jen jokes about it a lot because I wrote for Byte before she really got to know me, and she told me she really hated me based on what she read. On the
No,
things
because I'll tell you. So one of the reasons why I brought it up, you were amongst my music friends. You were kind of notorious.
Yeah.
Like, nobody met you. We didn't know who you were, but like we knew. I mean, we knew. As far as we were concerned, we knew that Dexter Sy, the music reviewer guy on Byte, because all we did at that time was go to bars and play music, and then of course Byte magazine is there, and then we really liked Byte magazine.
They had a lot of great content.
They did. Sayang without like kanang. Yeah, I kind of wish that they could have kept it going. They could have found a way, but I really enjoyed it personally.
Yeah, if there was a way I could help out to keep it alive, I would probably. Maybe I could get in. I wanted to get in touch. I still want to keep in touch with David. Because he's a really nice guy, and he's got a lot of. He's fun to talk to as well. He's a funny guy, and he's got a lot of interesting things he knows about, and he's also experienced.
Yeah, no, I mean, the hard thing with print is kind of like that unit cost, and then...
Yeah, it costs something, and you don't really earn much except for the ads. And I don't know how much the ads really bring in. So I heard from David that I had to like actually siphon some of that money from Blood Red, and just to keep it alive. And then eventually just decided that I couldn't go on doing that, which makes sense.
Yeah. Of course. No, but anyway, but it was well loved. And then I remember, like, we would read your stuff, and then you believe that. I mean, you better believe that when you wrote that review, you wrote us a review for the Rescue a Hero. So we were we had that CD that we used to just give away, and then. In a way, it was a thrill, huh? Hey, somebody's reviewing this Rinky Dink CD that we're giving away. And then, I remember it actually being largely lukewarm. Like, it wasn't like, it wasn't like you were giving a bad review, ba? Because I've read some of the reviews you gave, and some of them were, like, bad reviews. And then, you have every right to do so, of course. And then, anyway, nalingaw lang, may ba? So, but then, of course, I remember it was pretty lukewarm. Like, you were actually complimentary in some ways. I can't remember them good exactly, but here's the problem when it's your stuff. You only remember that one sentence which you disagree with. You get what I'm saying? Like, our tendency as flawed human beings, it's just
it's just confirmation bias, I guess. Part of that.
Oh yeah, no, but to focus on the negative, ba?
Yeah.
So I mean, that's all I remember. I was like, I disagree. But it was fun. Did you ever get like well, I wasn't gonna say.
Actually, I haven't.
Like feedback lang ba? Like feedback from that, or like people who've read it. Yeah,
not directly. I guess I got feedback from David about it, and I think he kind of expected, but I would kind of be building up like a hate list. And I guess it's a good opportunity, I guess, to defend myself. I'm the artist, but who might have felt I was very negative about it. But I think the thing with music reviews is it kind of speaks, to me, it kind of speaks a lot more about the reviewer, but then it does about the artist.
That's true.
Because I think art and music, but it's really meant to be experienced like subjectively. So, being a reviewer, I guess there's a kind of responsibility, but to be fair as much as you can, but in the end, I don't know if it's completely possible, but to be fair when you give a review, because you have to talk about how you experience it. But if you're writing something like maybe intended to sell something, then definitely you have to be very positive about it.
But also the thing is that in your defense, I will defend you. If you think about it, if you were just writing positive review after positive review after positive review, malay ko ba? Like, I wouldn't, it doesn't have the same impact. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, you're being true to yourself, to what you felt whenever you were listening to that piece of music. But also at the same time, if you were like me, because I tend to fall in the camp of like, hey, everything's good. Like, I watch a movie and then I'm like, hey, this is really nice. But my opinion doesn't really matter. No? But then it felt like at the time, yours did, because people did read it, especially the ones who you were writing about ba. Diba? So,
yeah, I guess that's true. It would be pretty boring siguro.
Yeah, diba? Imagine if
everything
you
is
just
like,
saying,
if it's lukewarm or just positive.
Yeah.
Or again, it would come out like this guy might be trying to sell me something. If everything is like something raving. But eventually, I had to stop doing those reviews, and I mean, even after
you stopped way before Byte.
Actually, I stopped when Byte ended, but of course, there could have been other channels where
that's true.
Maybe I was starting a blog or something. But it was also about the time I started becoming more involved, like as a musician and as someone who's been producing albums. So I kind of felt I had to stop doing that because it kind of be a conflict of interest.
I remember.
If I'm talking like crap about this other band, when I'm in another band myself, it would definitely come out when I might be like trying to bring someone else down, like to bring myself up. So that's definitely something I had in mind. I was very, very aware of.
So when you were writing the reviews, you were not in music.
Yeah, I was not playing at all. Yeah, at that point, I was basically a fan.
And then when you started delving in,
I decided I had to stop doing that.
Yeah, it's not a good look.
There was kind of an overlap. I started playing again, and then Yeah, actually, David, sa Visayan Music Fest, like we played there, and then David went up to me, and he was kind of like teasing me, I see what you got. You've been writing crap about all these bands. So he said after we played, like he said, like it was pretty good. Then that was also kind of the another realization siguro na I can't keep talking crap or even talking positive things about other bands, but just talking about other bands in general. When I'm also I've started playing as well.
Yeah,
Because
it's like a
probably,
weird thing to unsa ni ba? Yeah. No,
yeah.
so,
It's like writing product reviews when you're developing a competitor product, right? Yeah.
mo lagi that's true. Moment mo na. So speaking of like kanang blog ba, so let's I wanted to make sure that we also touched on tech management life. So that's your website. I'll link to it in the show notes. It's techmanagement.life. No? And then I'm kind of curious. So why start that blog? Why do it?
I think it happened like again when I moved jobs and then I started talking more talking more with people who I didn't know personally, and I think that opportunity, one-on-ones with people you work with, kind of gives you also more insight on how you think, like the way that you try to help them, or try to coach them to solve the problem.
So at this point, you were like a manager already.
Yeah, I was, and then so kind of my responsibility would be to coach people on how to resolve their problems, give them some advice on it, and then I realized like, there's a lot of things that I do and that I think of the way I think. I never really tried to put structure to it. Like it's there, it's based on my experience, and then just comes naturally. And I realized that it might do me well if I try to write these things down. It might help others as well. I think the transitioning from programmer to manager, it's kind of hard. Because again, you work with machines, you work with computers a lot, and then these computers don't have feelings. These computers, they tell you exactly if you do something wrong. But with people, it's not that way. So I think that transition is kind of hard for programmers. So I kind of wrote this blog I started writing this blog to maybe help out people I used to work with that might have the same struggles, and then at the same time also help myself to put structure to the way I think, and I think it's helped me that way so far. And I've also gotten feedback from people I used to work with. They're kind of finding it helpful as well.
Yeah, because you're really right that at least because I used to write a lot, and then we started the podcast, and I was like, I don't want to write anymore because it's so tiring. Okay, writing is hard. It's hard, no? So, but I found that one of the immediate benefits from writing was you kind of know how it you don't really know how you think until you write it down.
Yeah, that's true.
Because you're forced to put it in words, you're forced to give it a structure. And then so like you were just saying, like you don't know you had these ideas in your head, but you couldn't probably if you weren't writing it would be very difficult to verbalize.
Yeah. It might come out like when the opportunity comes, but I think there's a chance that you forget about it at some point.
So this is really just for you, and then like other people to help.
Yeah, it is, and like moving forward, but I kind of want people on board as well to start writing for it. That's why I didn't use my name for the blog, because I also want it to be something bigger. Like kind of want other people I work with, or maybe other people who are in the same line to start writing on this blog. If I can convince them to do so, and then it could become like a long term something of a consultancy that could maybe organize like events as well to help people learn more about it, and generally to lift up the way that we do software here in Cebu. Because it's actually a pretty big community, but just like the music community, it's kind of not to the point with the music community here, everyone really pretty much knows everyone else. With software, there's kind of a small community as well, and I think it also same thing. I kind of want Melt to like raise the bar for how how we do music here in Cebu. Also kind of want the same for tech management at Life. It might be some way to elevate as well how people do softwares in Cebu.
Yeah, just sharing your experience, sharing knowledge.
Yeah.
And, I actually like that 4-hour framework to motivation.
Yeah, that's actually the
wrote.
first thing that came to my mind when I talked to one of the guys at work. And he kind of was finding it hard, but to motivate himself to learn something. Like, he was trying to learn some new programming language, and then he kind of found it hard. So I had to come up with these questions that I wanted to ask him that might help him identify things that he needs to realize before he starts getting motivated to do this work. And so I came up with those 4 questions. And I realized that is something that was very structured to me by that time, but it was something that came from my experience.
Yeah, so can you, just for the listener na lang, so the 4 questions or the 4 hours?
Yeah, the 4 hours.
What is
something you have to ask yourself, actually. I think the first one was the reason why you do it. I think that's very important. And the second thing was the routine. So I think with things that you do routinarily, I guess that's a big motivator. If it's part of your schedule, then you're more likely
somehow
to
fit it into your routine.
It somehow, when it becomes a habit, it's more likely that you start doing it. Then the third one, I just used the word responsibility just to fit into but it's kind of more of accountability. By someone that who's actually invested also as well and keeping track of your progress. And I think that helps motivate you to continue doing things. Because if you're just for yourself, you have all the reason in the world or all the right in the world to stop doing it.
Sometimes it's easier to do it if you know that somebody is looking over your shoulder.
Someone asks you like how it's going. I think that's pretty big, strong motivation. And then the last one is the reward. I think that's the one thing that people kind of try to ignore because it seems like selfish to think of a reward for yourself. But I think that's very important. In some form, you have to know what's in it for you before you get motivated to do things. Even if you say it's the common good.
Actually, that's really true. Like, so at least for like me personally, like before starting this podcast, it took me a really long time to start this thing. A lot of it was because I couldn't figure out how to fit it in my like routine. Like, I couldn't figure out will this be a big, because if I do this, it's going to be a big part of my life, hence my routine.
Yeah, for sure.
So I needed to figure out a way, how can I fit this thing into the stuff that I do, no? And then Moragmoto, then I remember that was something that I was thinking about. And another thing that came to mind, and at least in terms of routine for me, was like, so like the past 2 years I got into cycling. And then, so one of the things when I had a kid was that, going back to having kids, like you sacrifice quite a lot of things having a kid, diba? But for the most part, you come off better when I feel. So, like, I've sacrificed going out at night. And it's not like I really enjoyed going out at night anyway, but I do enjoy like going to gigs, which I just can't do anymore. So I just don't do it anymore. Because you could, but then, when you get home, you still have that kid who needs your attention, who will wake up eventually, that sort of thing. And then, so I got into cycling, and then I realized that it fits my current schedule, a routine, because I'll wake up like before everybody else wakes up. So no one's looking for me, no one needs me, and I go out on a bike ride, and then when I come back, sometimes that's when they wake up.
Perfect fit.
Yeah, so it just fits. And then I feel like that's one of the reasons why I've been able to keep it going. No?
Yeah, for sure. I also have, I think I can relate because we also usually have my me time early in the morning. Because that's when Jen still sleep, baby still sleep. So, probably not as early as you. I imagine you'll probably go out like for cycling, maybe 5 a.m. or...
Yeah, 5:30.
Usually I get up like 6:30, so there's just about enough time like, to do some mindfulness meditations and do some reading. and watch some videos on YouTube. Yeah, maybe about an hour, and then that's when people start waking up as well.
Oh, it's just you, but I find that's really, even before I got into cycling, I used to do my writing 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
I knew that I'd have a good hour before anything happens.
Yes. That's something that I guess that's the hard thing for a lot of people is I think that part right there, they're getting up early.
Yeah, well, I don't know how. I don't know how it is with you, but ever since I had kids, I'm so tired. Like, I'm just so tired. Like, yeah, like when they're asleep, you're like, yes, I can sleep now. Like, I used to have a hard time sleeping.
Yeah.
No way. I close my eyes. I'm down.
Yeah, actually, I think that's the same goes for me. Like, once the kids are asleep. Actually, since Harper sleeps like a bit earlier, so I still get some time to watch a movie or I watch some shows on YouTube, and then usually I don't have that trouble anymore. Like I used to take melatonin supplements just to get
Oh,
to
really?
sleep. Yeah, but these days, like when I lie down, it's 5 minutes and I'm asleep. That's not a problem for me anymore.
Yeah, so if you have trouble sleeping, get a kid. Anyway, we've been talking for a while. Is there anything you want to add? Anything you want to... Do we cover everything?
No, I think I think we've talked a lot.
Yeah. Where can people find you online?
Yeah, I guess right now I'm plugging like the techmanagement.life blog, but you can get in touch with me there. I'm also on Facebook, and there's Tech Management.life has a page on Facebook. And of course, Melt Records also has a page on Facebook. I think you can get a lot of the updates there. So I'm trying to build up mailing lists as well. So feel free to subscribe if you have time.
Which one for Tech Management?
Techmanagement.life has a subscribe link at the right sidebar, and then for Melt Records as well, we're gonna be building up a mailing list as well.
I'm curious. So, do you have a strategy like with the mailing list? Like, what kind of content do you plan to?
I think for Melt, basically, there's gonna be a lot of new releases.
So like the Melt one, it's just announcements. Basically.
Yeah, it's gonna be announcements mainly. We don't know. We might give away some free content as well. We haven't really thought about it so much at this point. But definitely in the future, we want to be, to reward our subscribers as well. Give them some exclusive content. With Tech Management.life as well, it's going to be at this point, probably updates from the blog, but also I'm coming up with some ebooks and like resources and tools that might be helpful to subscribers.
Yeah, okay. I was gonna say at least for like Tech Management Life, for example, like I think I found I found for me personally my preferred way to get content. I actually don't really like the word content, but really there's for lack of a better word, no, is through like a newsletter, and then that's subscribing to stuff, and then one of my favorite newsletters that I subscribe to. I don't know how to pronounce their name. It's Hyatt. HIUT. So they're a denim brand. They make like these ridiculously nice jeans, right? Like super nice jeans, handmade, handcrafted. Like they get the best material, etc. They're also cost an arm and a leg, but they also have one of the best newsletters.
Really?
Period. Like in the world.
What do they write about then?
Basically, they just share like that's some really good stuff on the internet.
So it's like they aggregate stuff from.
They aggregate stuff on the internet, and then that's like a way that you can help people gihapon ba? Because if it's just like I don't know, I feel like if it's a newsletter, there has to be like a reason why. So even me, I publish a newsletter.
Yeah.
I'll plug my own newsletter. But basically, I have a newsletter also, and then kind of because I notice it's my preferred way of getting like news.
Yeah, that's true. And I actually have to thank Jen for helping me out with Tech Management.life because I think she has more insights to these kinds of things. Because it's as a consumer of online content. Again, we use the word content, but as a consumer, I usually don't notice these small strategies that blogs use to get audiences and to help people as well. And the newsletter is one thing that I never really realized that I also like to subscribe to these email newsletters, especially when it comes to like software stuff and management stuff. Like there's a lot of really, really good information from all these different blogs around. So yeah, I realized that that's something that would really help. That really helps people as well.
Yeah, ako, I routinely subscribe and unsubscribe from newsletters.
And I think the problem is that Gmail has this auto filtering thing now that brings stuff, puts stuff automatically in promotion. So sometimes you miss those things. But it's also helpful in a way. It's like a double-edged sword.
Yeah, that's true. But to be honest, I actually turned that off on my Gmail.
Yeah, that's true.
No?
You could turn that off.
Yeah, I just turned it off.
But it's on by default.
It's on. Yeah, but I don't know, but it's like Murago siya. Here's the thing, like, okay, with social media you reach a lot more people.
Yeah.
No? But the a lot of the people you reach tend to not care what you want ba.
Yeah.
So let's say the newsletter, say you have 200 people in your newsletter and then you get 15% of them to open. I'm bad at math. You get 40 of them to open your email. It doesn't sound like a big number, but these are people who care about and who are likely reading your.
Who would probably engage with you.
Yeah, like I've gotten people who will occasionally email me back. Kanang.
I do that actually with the management blogs that I follow. Sometimes, because they actually they really engage with you. Like they ask you specific questions that you as someone who's also writing a blog, like you get really tempted to reply and give your insights on it.
Okay. No, I'm a big fan of newsletters.
Yeah, I am too.
Yeah, so if you figure out I think the going back content is like figuring out I really feel like there should be a better word than content. But going back to that, if you figure out what kind of content ba, because what Hyatt does, it's really good, interesting stuff off the internet. And it has to do typically with creativity, with telling a story, and because they have a motto do one thing well. So the one thing that they really do well is make jeans. No? So how do they advertise that? So they're known in this creative community as this. They have their workshop. They have a workshop on creativity, on online entrepreneurship, that whole thing.
Yeah, I think that they're probably in the software world, that's kind of like Netflix probably, because Netflix is also pretty known to be a really good software culture. For software development culture. So there's all these podcasts as well from Netflix. You have all these newsletters, and you kind of have a cult of Netflix management philosophy.
I listened to one. We're going longer than we should. I listened to one Netflix. It's okay. I listened to one podcast. They were interviewing the lady. I think she used to be the head of HR in Netflix. And so apparently Netflix has this famous work culture. Can I say it as it is?
Yeah.
If you're not, and then you're not a family or a team, there's a difference.
Yeah.
So if you're a family, you don't fire your brothers and sisters or your mom and dad. But if you're a team, if you're a basketball team, you can get fired if you're bad at your job, or if the role that you are in your job just doesn't exist anymore, which is it's just a Netflix thing, diba? They started off with the CDs, delivering CDs, and then once the whole streaming thing came in, so the people who were integral parts of delivering CDs to people, they were let go.
Yeah.
And then this lady, so she was doing that job in HR, she came up with the whole culture and everything, and then at some point, the head of Netflix, I don't know his name. Reed Hastings, that guy, determined that she was no longer fit for that job, or her role was not needed anymore. So he fired her.
That's an interesting story, actually. I've not
I'm trying to think.
heard of that.
I'm trying to think which podcast I heard it from.
I'll look it up as well.
I'll send you a link. But that was really good. Like, the guy was interviewing her, and then she was kind of just talking about that story.
Yeah. It's interesting. I guess Netflix. I think like great cultures have to be somehow controversial in a way. Because if you're not really changing anything about how things work, then you probably don't have that edge over other cultures.
Yeah, well, also because like a lot of other cultures, they're typical.
Yeah, typical.
Diba? And then it's that's something so that's where like sometimes you have this office politics and
yeah. Those are things you want to avoid as much as possible. I guess no one's really figured it out yet completely.
Yeah. If you search like the Netflix culture deck, it's out there.
Yeah, it is.
Oh.
It's actually one of the like Bibles that software management uses.
Oh, really?
It's like a gold standard way of how to run like a software company.
Sige, I think we should end it. I think we can continue talking forever.
Yes,
all right.
Talk off the record.
Yeah. Thanks, Bye.
Yeah, thanks, Carla.
All right. It's good to talk to Dexter. Shout out to Jen, his wife, for making this interview happen. Last year I worked on a thing with Jen, and then Dexter showed up, and we spoke to him, and then I spoke to him. This is before their kid was born, and I was really glad to have Dexter Sy on the podcast. Thank you, Cube Gallery, for sponsoring the podcast. So for 2019, I've recorded all of the interviews, and I'm working on the 2020 calendar as of this point. So aside from booking guests for interviews, we are looking for sponsorship partners for 2020. So if you work in a business or own a business that would like to partner with us, send me an email at info@032.com, and then we'll get back to you. And then especially if you're a sponsorship partner that aligns with the 032 Conversations listener, that's usually the best thing. That's why I love this partnership with Cube Gallery, honestly. Hopefully it keeps going on 2020. So just email info@032.com. Also, if you're a listener and you just want to support the podcast, you can buy something from the Assembly Online. Use our promo code CONVERSATIONS for 20% less. Or you, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, head over to patreon.com/032 and you can monetarily support the podcast. Otherwise, if you don't want to monetarily support and just like what we do and still want to help, just share this episode online. Every little bit helps. And lastly, the music from this podcast is Piano March by Audionautics. Okay, I'll see you next Tuesday. Bye!